Bartlett was seated with his back to the windows, dripping blood onto his white lounge. He was a nobody, really. A middle manager in an Ice-9 drug cartel who had been fool enough to try cutting in on Mr. Long's territory. The memory of dinner 2 nights ago was burned deep. Alone, eating chili clams sautéed in beer, fresh-baked bread on the side, and a large glass of whiskey straight up. The clams were real, so the dinner was expensive. But someone in my line of work ain't saving for retirement, as a rule. The 2 small rooms of a lorcha were cozy, friendly, and filled with the tantalizing smells of baked seafood and crisp soy chicken. Conversations in Cantonese and Mandarin and Portuguese washed around me while I dipped the fresh bread in the clam sauce and savored the reason this was my favorite spot in town. The front door opened, and a short guy, who I later learned was Fred Bartlett, sauntered over, cigarette dangling from his lips, a goon on either side of him. He had a gun in his belt that only I could see from this angle, sitting at a small table in the back corner of the second room. The guys with him were big-shouldered, 1 Filipino, 1 white. The white guy had a shaved head and teeth that glinted metallic blue, a nano-alloy affectation wannabe gangsters had taken to implanting lately. The Filipino wore a white fedora and the calm, coiled stance of a professional fighter. Bartlett had this grin on his face that made me want to break a chair across it. He said, "Endgame Ebbinghaus, in the flesh." He made a show of looking me over. Guess I thought you'd be more intimidating. Solid titanium limbs, tattooed skull, a dick that shoots flames, that sort of thing. I slugged half my whiskey and said, "I have no idea who you are, and the woman who takes the reservations here is more intimidating than you." The grin stayed on his face, though it strained a little. He took a drag on his cigarette, blowing the smoke out through his nose. "I have a feeling you'll remember me after this," he said, and pulled the pistol from his belt. I'd looked down the barrel of enough guns not to get too flustered by this one, but it's never a pleasant experience. Quiet rippled through the restaurant as heads turned to watch. A table of 3 got up slowly to leave. One of the goons pointed at them and made them sit back down. Everyone else sat stock still. So, yeah, I've looked down enough barrels to know there's one thing you never do: hesitate. I threw the table up with both hands. The edge slammed into Bartlett's wrist, making him fire a shot into the ceiling. I followed in one smooth motion with a straight right to the man with glittering teeth, using the full force of the augmented joints in my shoulder and knees as I rose with the punch. His head snapped back and he crashed into the table behind as he fell. The Filipino was already moving. Kicking low, I checked it. He flowed smoothly into a high kick. I stepped back. The blow didn't come close. I smiled at him. He didn't like it. He came at me hard, as expected. I moved inside to meet his charge, ducking and ramming my elbow into his face. The Filipino staggered. I grabbed him by the collar before he could fall and hefted him above my head easily. The titanium sockets in my arms clicked and whirred softly. I paused to savor the moment while Bartlett scrambled for his gun and patrons gasped or screamed or quietly cried. I laughed, though I'm not sure why, and then hurled the Filipino, knocking Bartlett backwards and over a chair. But the blow didn't hit square, and the runt had sufficient adrenaline and panic coursing through him to pick himself up and fly out the front door. I didn't bother following him. Men that careless were easy enough to track down, and my main concern at that moment was finding a new spot for dinner. I surveyed the mess. The Filipino groaned but stayed down. The white guy was out cold, marinating in the beer and garlic prawns from the table he'd taken with him on the way down. I walked over to where the manager...